I I can fall into the trap of overworking myself without even knowing I'm doing it, because the stuff that I'm working on is so exciting that I forget that I haven't eaten. I forget that
Well,
I started at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. and it's all of a sudden 5:30 and I'm like, where did the time
Well,
go?
yeah. Well, anytime we're on site, and you're kind of providing Overwatch, along with the director and videography, et cetera. If we're doing something live, one of the important things is making sure you slide food underneath your face, because you will literally
Yeah.
go all day without it because you're so focused. And so to that, kind of within that question, we were talking, I think, yesterday, and a comment came up. I don't know if you or I said it, but it was like a long vacation, 1 or 2 weeks, whatever that is, can be just as unproductive in the sense of what is the goal of this vacation. Because even you can say, oh, why are you attaching a goal to a vacation? Well, coming back refreshed is a goal. You might want to frame it a different way. Everyone can do what they want, but I would imagine one of the purposes is that. But you can have a situation where a long vacation is just as unproductive as 2 weeks of hard charging work. So for you, what are the things that say, hey, I'm burning out here, right? Number one. And then what are the things that allow you to get a sense that I am no longer burned out and I'm ready to get back? Like, what is that for you?
It's funny. I was talking to my son about this yesterday because we were going to get haircuts, and it came up. I like to bounce things off. He's almost 18. I like to bounce things off of him. He's very easy to talk to, and one of the triggers for me is a feeling of dislike or disgust around almost anything
Around effort.
effort
Or
of any
work.
sort,
Yeah.
whether it's a volunteer obligation I committed to, or a client project that I'm working on, or someone says, "Hey, can you get on the phone and talk about this?" I'm like, I hate this. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. And I've learned over time that resentment.
That
The
train really wants
everybody.
everyone to know it's coming.
Here comes the train. That resentment causes me to pause. I don't know. I don't even know. I can hear it in the headphones, but I don't know if it's
Honestly, I hope it's there so that this very odd interaction is inside of the.
I'm like trying to focus on the train every time I talk. Just
Well,
give
that's
it.
what we get for being in an old mill building with large windows.
Yeah, it's there's no not hearing.
I have a
anything.
train near my house, not terribly near, but like the big freight long things will come through every now and then, and it like they don't make the horn like that guy's doing, but you like hear like like it's like almost like I don't know if a movement based sound. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like you feel the sound. Maybe that I don't know.
It's called a vibration.
Yeah, you're right. So to offshoot again, these kind of things happen a lot with me. I don't know if it's getting worse, but yesterday
I think it is, to be honest. I've noticed it a lot.
I called an apostrophe a top comma.
Yeah. I think what you've this is a huge tangent, but what I think what you've done is accepted that you don't know the word for the thing you're talking about, and you describe it the way that you want to, and someone will translate that for you. Like, not in like a lazy sense, but almost in like this is what I got. This is what I have right now. And I'm not going to waste any time trying to think of the right word. I'm just going to say what I say.
Well, yeah, it's probably why I get reminded that I'm clever and not smart. And I don't know if you've watched the newest Rick and Morty.
I haven't, no.
All right. Well, I'm going to spoil it a little bit
Yeah.
because it fits into the story well. We sit down to watch it on Monday, Ryan, my son, and I, and they start showing a bunch of previously on things, right? And it gets like 4 in, and I go, we missed an episode. I haven't seen any of this. And they both look at me and they go, no, it's a part of the episode. You like I'm in, and I go, no, I stopped it. I go back, no, I did. I completely missed what was happening.
Yeah.
And they had me. And I think to myself, man, I am not that bright.
Well, I think what you are that makes up for that is self-aware.
True.
You know what I mean? Like you have no a lot of people take umbrage with people correcting them. Like a lot of people would say movement-based sound, and then somebody would say you mean vibrations, and it would like ruin their day. They'd be like, "That guy corrected me. What a jerk!" Like I was going to get there at one point. I was going to say it.
No, I wasn't.
You're remarkably egoless in that on that front. Like, but back to your question. To me, it's when I start taking umbrage with the silliest little things. Like, there's a really great episode of Key and Peele where they do this, where it's like the misinterpretation of inflection on a text message. And you and I have talked about this before. And like for a while, we would say to our team members, like, when you read this text message from me, just picture my smiling face, because I'm not using punctuation properly. Like emojis are now great to help with that. But like, it was like this episode where they're just two friends communicating. And one is like, hey man, what do you want to do tonight? And the other one's like, whatever. And the guy that asked that question is like, what do you mean, what was this guy? What, we just want to hang out with me now? And he's like, what if we go to the bar? And he's like, yeah, that's up to you, whatever you want. And he's like, whatever I want? And when they finally get to the bar, one dude is like sitting, chilling, having a drink. And the other guy walks in with a baseball bat with screws like screwed into it, like ready to kill him because he thinks he's showing up for a fight. And I can be that guy when I've noticed that I'm working too hard or that I'm...
You get a little raw.
A lot raw. Like I just get like very like, wait a minute. Like I start reading into everything. I start over scrutinizing it. And I know that the reason I'm doing it is because my role when I'm deeply focused in making something is heavily detail oriented. And I'm assessing details to a point that is really, 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 really granular, really, really deep. And it's almost like I never step out of that thinking and I start applying it to everything else in my life.
Yeah, and how do you take that and set it down?
Yeah.
Do you have like a flare you pop? Like at home, what I'll say is I'll be like, I'm feeling bitey today. You know, so like a way, like, because I know pretty quick that, you know, because I don't hide how I feel. You know, I don't keep stuff inside. I don't suppress things. It's out there and that's it. So how do you have a good system for letting someone know, hey, I'm tense?
Well, I do in the sense of like the warning, like, hey,
a rattle.
Yeah, something's up here. I know I'm not in the best mood. I know I'm not my best self. What's interesting about me is that I'm usually able to shield the rawness in certain situations. Like it doesn't usually carry over to home life where like I take umbrage with like something that my kids say or my wife say. That usually doesn't happen. But I'm also not in the usual kind of jovial, inspired state that I am. And
you're a little more closed off.
And the other trigger that I experience is like the smallest task feels like I'm
Herculean.
about to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you take this to the recycle bin? Is like, oh, recycle bin.
Another one of these.
I gotta bring this all the way over there and put it in that bin. Like, oh my God. And then like, so I don't have like a prescription for that. I can diagnose and go, oh man, I think I'm feeling like, burnt out or whatever that variant would be. But it's getting harder and harder to determine what the remedy is. It used to be lose myself in some form of escapism, whether it's like read a sci-fi book or a fantasy novel or watch a show or a movie that I've watched 1,000 times, but it's like my go-to. And what I'm finding lately is that those things are not as reliable as they used to be. So last spring, I decided to take golf back up because I was like, let's sit and look at words for what they are. Recreation is recreation. Why haven't I noticed this before? Like,
I want to punch you in the face. I never thought of that.
yeah, like
I'm so jealous.
like maybe I just need to do something that takes my brain away from if I'm using my executive function for something that is different, I'm not losing any of that desire to use executive function, because that's my problem with sitting and mindlessly binge watching a show that I don't care about. Is much like you said at the beginning, taking time off with no goal is sort of just like deciding you're going to exist in nothingness. And if you're not careful, all you're thinking about is the problems that are waiting for you when you get back in the micro sense.
Or you're focused on your lack of purpose in that moment.
Right. The same space that I might go to come up with a really wonderful idea for a client or for our brand is the same thing I tap into when I'm 100 yards away from the green and I need to get the ball close to the pin. So like I use that as a way to like just change the challenge. And usually if I change the challenge, I'm then able to come back to what I was trying to solve. Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes a couple days, sometimes it takes a week or longer. And there's this great, one of the things that always stood out to me that I thought was so true to life in the show Mad Men was when Don Draper, the creative director, was mentoring Peggy Olson, who was kind of his protege, and she was having trouble coming up with an idea. And he said, think about it deeply and then just forget about it. And something happens where a couple days later, the answer will just come to you. And I that has happened to me so many times in my life. So
it's like do less.
Yeah, it
pop
really
up, do less.
It's really weird. It's like, so you talked about like, how do you communicate this? Do you have common language at home? My wife has instructions to tell me to go slow to go fast, because there's a saying in golf when you're swinging the club that slow is fast and fast is far. And so what that means is that when you grip the club hard and try to swing out of your shoes, you're actually swinging at a slower speed than if you grip the club loosely and just let the piece of engineering that you're holding do most of the work for you. And I adopted that as a creative mantra, because one of the challenges I have when I get this way is that I get loathsome of the fact that nothing is getting done while I'm in fact not doing anything.
Which, of course, that starts feeding in on itself.
It starts feeding in on itself. So when I have these, sometimes I can do these kind of manic bursts where like I'm prolific for 3 to 4 weeks or longer. And then the other side of that is like that I reach the end of that burst and I know I need to slow down. I know I need to take it easy. I know there's no reason to keep that up except I really enjoy being in that space. And one of the triggers for me is like, yeah, but I was so prolific and I now I'm back to like slow down, do nothing. And if I'm not careful, I can like step outside of myself and start taunting myself for being so like pokey and useless. I have no idea where that comes from because my parents both worked very, very hard in their life, but they were not the kind of people that brought work home and absorbed it at all times. As a matter of fact, recreation was like a core principle of my childhood. Like growing up, we were always traveling, camping, whatever. So like I don't know where that comes from except sort of like I'm on this high and now
You're chasing the high.
I'm off the high and I hate it and I want to get back on whatever that was. And the quicker that I accept it, the quicker it goes away.
That's one of the most freeing realizations is identifying the trigger moment of what it is that's going to allow you to move on from it, whether it's accepting it or naming it. Sometimes I'll call you and we'll be talking to something like, oh, I feel better now because I named the thing. And it's almost like once you call out the demon's name, the demon dies.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I do that. Unfortunately, it compounds because those times between the highs often are accompanied with lack of sleep. So not only am I,
I've had a hard time sleeping the past couple of days too.
yeah,
When you mentioned it, I was like, what?
yeah, not only am I like upset at my performance in that moment, but I'm also kind of ornery just because I didn't sleep well. And I had listened to a podcast years ago with one of the founders of Basecamp, and he was talking about how he pauses a lot in his day when he has a negative thought and says, I wonder how well I slept last night. Because it could be that surface level, that somewhere around 4 p.m. or 6 p.m., I'm just really tired because I didn't sleep well. And my executive function is just not what it normally is. And I cannot maintain a positive outlook.
It's like the idea that, the toddler needs a nap. And maybe one of the things we have to realize in our adult lives is that the toddler's not gone. And sometimes they show up again.
Yeah.
And they need a nap.
And if anyone was to ever listen to this that has, a degree in psychology, I do believe that I have a form of ADHD. I've never been tested. My wife and I talk about it a lot. She was diagnosed with it. We're pretty sure that one of the kids has it, maybe more than one.
But at some point, it's got to be like, is that not just normal for your family, right?
Yes.
And that there's so much labeling that goes on with neurodiversity that it's like, oh, because you are neurodiverse, a label needs to be applied to this behavior, and it needs correction. And no doubt there are absolutely many individuals that some sort of correction will give them a higher quality of life. But I think it's great that where you look at this is, first, does this need correction? Its existence does not mean correction.
Well, that's what we've arrived at is like, for my wife, it needed correction. she needed medication. It was clear that, and it's night and day. She's a completely different person with the medication. For my daughter, identifying it isn't about medicating. It's about helping her school teach to her unique, divergence in the way that she might think or behave. For me, I don't see how either really is going to help. And so I have studied the topic to the extent that a layman can study something like that. I understand the triggers, and I believe that what is happening in those bursts of creativity is just hyperfixation. I think that's all it is. And, I believe that if I went to the medication route, it would have one or two different effects on me. I would either be in like go manic mode all the way, because like a lot of the times it's Adderall, and that's just it's a stimulant, and so I'd be go 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 go, and then the other Jim's like, oh, I wonder if
Let's put some higher octane into this engine and see what we get.
Right. And then the other one is like for like a Ritalin style for like focus and things like that. And that might bring me to a point that like I'm a zombie. And like, so I don't know the answer yet. I'm still working through it. What I'm committed to is to try to continue to integrate it all together, where I have a daily practice that's rooted in creativity, and that happens every day. And then the rest of the day is focused on taking care of business, resting, recreation of some sort, and building off of that, instead of saying I need a week break arbitrarily. You've seen me do it before, where like I'll say, hey, I gotta go, and I'll leave and I'll go to like
Northampton
or North Adams, which is a town that has a giant contemporary art museum in it, and I can spend a day and a half or 2 days just in that museum looking at art. And on the surface level, it's in alignment with like my role in the business and what I do. But beyond that, it's like those are days that I give myself the permission and the investment to do nothing but walk around this building, look at art, eat lunch, look at more art, go back to the hotel, put on a documentary or a movie, lay in the bed, get up. It's like it's much more. I call it a break from the tunnel.
Yeah. Well, I think the route that you're going down is wise, and it's also, when you look at our experience together, I came out of a 5 or 6 year period where I was on, medication with Buspar and citalopram, and both of which are, one is an SSRI and one is an anti-anxiety medication. And I mean, it numbs you. It gets, don't get me wrong, it gets rid of the depression and it gets rid of panic attacks. But for me, at least, it killed the person. And yeah, it definitely helped, obviously personal challenges, marriage being what it was, et cetera. And, now 5 years out of that, it's very interesting, when you change and adjust your circumstances. For me, coming off that medication 3 months after getting separated and never needing it ever again, and consistently over the course of 5 years, identifying more things about myself, discovering things about myself. And it's, if you're willing to put that level of work into how do I work with this, like my need for control, my need to, wrest chaos down and wrap a rope around it and turn it into an engine of development. Instead of fighting that, I've embraced it, and I've also allowed it to just flow through me when needed. And I think you're doing the exact same thing. Instead of fighting your nature, as long as your nature is not destructive to yourself or to others,
Right.
I say don't fight it. I say be what you are, be who you are, and love yourself first. Because if you do that, you are going down the path of happiness. And the fact that you have people in your family that are supportive of that journey, because there's a lot of folks where if someone in their life also had a similar affliction, it'd be you'd almost be pressured or shamed into taking that medication too. And the fact
Or
that
even worse, in some family cultures, it's just tough. Suck it up, kid.
oh yeah, be a man. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Thankfully, while it still exists, I think that sort of thinking is slowly going away, which is great. But the fact that you have that supportive environment where it's like, yeah, this is the whole person. This is Matt. Yeah. And it's a lot like the old mantra that you gave me a long time ago when I used to freak out over stuff taking too long. And you would say to me, they'll never remember how long it took. They'll always remember how amazing it was. And that's about accepting. In order to get this, you must accept the whole thing.
Yeah.
It must take what it must take. And for someone like yourself, where again, from an outsider's perspective, I don't live with you, but you're who you are, and this thing that gives you great power on the business side doesn't seem to negatively affect you personally. It doesn't seem to negatively affect those around you, and you're given the space to be who you are. And the more you just look at our brand over the past 2 years, the more you've been you, that has just become us in the brand. It's come out more and more and more. And I'm definitely grateful that you have that environment.
Yeah. It's like a exorcism. Like, like you ever see a movie where like the priest is like, I'm going in this room with this person, and the family's going to stay outside. And no matter what you hear or what is said or what I say, do not unlock this door and come in.
Yeah.
I think that for both of us, setting up situations where significant other, when I say this, you tell me this. And even if I bite your head off after you tell me that, just your go-to from there is to tell me that I told you that I'm probably going to bite your head off, and you still need to tell me this. And like, so it's
well, you're leaving breadcrumbs for yourself.
I
to
am.
Pull it's trap doors out of your own psyche. And again, I mean, neither one of us have any training in any of this, but
No.
I think when you're suffering from either, whether it's anxiety or it's something related to a past trauma, or if it's something in the realm of, overly focusing, what's the movie where, is it Soul?
I don't know.
Is that the one where the people are like, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this? They're the little they play the Bob Dylan song, and the ship comes over, and I think it's the movie Soul, the Disney movie.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And people get their talent traps them into a negative behavior.
Yeah.
And something has to reach in and pull them out of that. That you're actually trying to leave those for yourself. And I think that's a really healthy behavior.
Well, people are rebellious in the creative space. Like, part of being creative is to pick a concept and then explore all the different angles of that concept. And I think that's why a lot of creative people carry these challenges where they are really brilliant, but they spin out of control in all other aspects of their life because they don't have a structure in place, almost like, break glass in case of emergency kind of stuff. Like you called it breadcrumbs. That's a great way to put it, because it's like, how do you, if I can't get out of bed, how am I going to pay a bill?
Yeah.
Like
how do I get out of bed?
right.
know?
And I'm not usually the one to lay in bed and pull the covers up over my head and like not move. I'm saying like, you can go from being like flying so close to the sun that like it's unbelievable what you're doing, to like back to earth.
And then straight down through into
Yeah,
hell.
yeah, right. And like I look at it now like my job, my primary role here is to stay inspired. So it's like so that's how I now look at it, is like the litmus test is like, what's going to inspire me? And that's where I go. If it's reading a book, great. If it's watching a movie, great. Sometimes it's just, and I know you do this too, sometimes it's just getting up, getting in your car and driving somewhere non-specific. It's like, I don't know if it's like the active forward momentum in a vehicle, or if it's like I have no mission. Like you need that like break.
I like it because it usually what's triggering me is a feeling of the plan isn't working, or I am not moving forward. I'm not going anywhere. The very act of being in a car means I'm moving and I'm going somewhere. So it can break the cycle of self-loathing.
Yeah.
So that's what I like it for.
And then I get it's a funny, like one thing we've worked through, my wife and I, is like, I'll be out on one of those and she'll be like, "Hey, can you pick up the little one from school?" And I'm like, "Well, no." "Well, you're out." "Yeah, but I'm driving right now." She's like, "What does that even mean, man?" Like
I'm
yeah.
in the car.
She's like, "Yes, I agree. Can you go pick her up at school?" "Well, no. What do you mean? You're interrupting my driving time." And so but it's not just, it's what I think we're both saying differently is admitting that stuff does not come easily. I know it doesn't come easily to either one of us when we first started talking about it, because when you collaborate at the level that you and I collaborate, you need to understand one another very, very deeply. And one thing I appreciate about what you do now that we didn't do before is you'll say, "Hey, if I'm needed, like it's the end of the world, I'm needed, then let's talk. But if it can wait till a few days from now, probably better off I'm not in the right headspace to have whatever
I'm
conversation."
feeling dark right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling the darkness, and identifying that. For the first time you did it, I was like, "Oh no, something's wrong. Like I'm gonna write back like, oh, you got this, man." Like, and then I realized that all you were doing was saying, I acknowledge that what we want to talk about can wait, and it probably should wait because I'm not going to be my best self in this conversation today.
Yeah. Moreover, I even more importantly for me is I'm trying to sequester it, because the last thing I want is to have my fight become yours.
Right.
Not that you're not willing to help me fight my fight, because you are.
Yeah.
But if you're over here and you're riding the dragon and I do not want a drip of darkness to splash over onto you. I want to stay cloistered in that room, and I'm gonna fight. And if I need a hand to help me fight the demons, I'll let you know. But for now, I got the flaming sword. I'm doing the thing, and I'm gonna fight him alone.
Usually that's when we get to the naming, like you said, the naming of the problem is usually, and I've adopted that tactic with either you or my wife, Rachel. I'll just send a text and I'll be like, yeah, there's really no need for a response to this, but here's what I'm dealing with. And it's almost like micro journaling.
Yeah, you're right. You're saying it to someone, which makes it real. It almost makes it corporeal.
Yeah.
Even though it's a digital message or it's vibrations.
Yeah.
From your mouth, which is speaking, by the way. Listen to the mouth vibrations. Mouth vibrations would be a good album, by the way.
Yeah.
I just completely derailed my train of thought.
Well, I think we're good. I think we're gonna gonna shut it off.